So in today's video, I'm gonna be doing an upgrade here to the Fortune Taco, taking out the factory tie rods, these skinny, skimpy little tie rods, upgrading them today with these beefy Apex tie rods. So hopefully you can tell here on camera the difference in thickness and build in the Apex chassis compared to the OEM. So stay tuned in today's video. We're gonna be taking off the factory tie rods here on the passenger side and upgrading to this Apex chassis tie rod. What is going on, guys? Welcome back for another video. If you're new here, my name's Chris, and we already saw in the introduction, but this is the Fortune Taco. If you guys have never seen my videos before, I like to do installs, mods on the truck, product reviews, adventures, hitting the trail, going camping. If that is anything that you are interested in, consider subscribing to the channel so you can see all the future videos I make. But on today's video, like we already talked about, I'm gonna be taking off these factory OEM tie rods and upgrading them with the Apex chassis tie rods. And I have a little bit of a challenge here because it is a little after 5 p.m. Sunsets, I think like 5:45, so I need to hurry up and get this done before I lose daylight. I did the driver's side off camera. I wanted to kind of get through it, make sure I can get it all down. Kind of knew what I was doing. I've never done tie rods before, so it's new and experimental to me. But we successfully got that driver's side on. We're gonna go ahead and get the passenger side tossed on here. And then very last thing to note, if you are gonna be doing any tie rod upgrades on your vehicle, just make sure you know it is highly recommended to go get a 4-wheel alignment done so you're gonna drive nice and straight. So if you do plan on doing this, make sure you have an alignment set up pretty damn soon after so you're not gonna be ruining your tires or having any type of alignment issues. We're gonna start by jacking the truck up. We need to get this tire off, and then we're gonna start pulling that factory tie rod off the truck. All right, so now that we have the tire off, we need to get the cotter pin pulled out so we can take off this castle nut, which is connecting your tie rod to the front of the knuckle here. I'm just using some like curved edge needle nose pliers so I can bend this cotter pin straight to pull it out. There we go. That thing was in there. With that cotter pin out, our castle nut's 19 millimeter. So I just need to loosen that and get it taken off. A little trick I learned, take that castle nut completely off, flip it upside down, screw it back on until the top of the castle nut is flush with the top of the threaded bolt that's coming up through the knuckle here. What we're gonna do is use that as a nice flat surface to hammer on this a little bit to bust this loose so we can pull the tie rod out. And why you want to use that castle nut on top of the threads is because if you just take the castle nut off and you hammer on these threads, you might kind of mushroom the top of those threads, and then it'll make it really hard to pull this out. If you try to just unscrew the castle nut, the threaded portion inside is just spinning freely, using like a set of pliers to get in here and hold onto those threads. You should be able to loosen the castle nut. And then once that castle nut's off, you should be able to get the tie rod popped out the bottom. And the knuckle will freely move. We need to access that clamp on the very back of this boot. To make that process easier, I'm gonna go start the truck up, turn the wheel all the way to the right to push that steering rack as far out this way as we can get it. That'll give us more access to getting this tie rod out. There's this clamp here at the very end of the rubber boot. And if you use a screwdriver to pry up under here, you can pop this clamp off and that'll allow you to slide this boot off. Oh. All right, there we go, got it popped off. And then once that's popped off, we can actually take the boot and pull back on it. We're gonna pinch this clamp so we can slide the whole entire boot off. That's gonna give us exposure to the back end of the tie rod, the inner tie rod. Should be able to slide this boot down once it wants to work with us. There we go. Now, what we have here on the inner tie rod, there's a round washer that is folded over on 2 spots, one here, one on the back side. There are little flat divots here in the inner tie rod, and these washers are folded over to keep this thing from spinning itself loose. So we need to just take a screwdriver, and that folded over portion, we need to fold it back out straight so we can start to unscrew this and pull this out. Kind of take a hammer and just tap it a little bit. Now, some people separate the outer tie rod and then do the inner tie rod. What I did on the other side made it easier in my opinion. I'm just gonna go ahead, and now that we have these tabs fold over, unscrew the inner, pull this whole entire thing off, and it's gonna come off in one piece. I don't see the reason to do it in two separate pieces in my opinion. If you're a DIY kind of person, you're gonna be taking on this project, I'm gonna show you this little tool, fairly cheap, easy to use. I got it off Amazon. This is gonna help you get these tie rods out without having any special tools or equipment. Like I said, it's very cheap. You can take these two bolts off on the bottom. It separates into two pieces. And then on this inner tie rod portion, you're gonna put it over and slide this around the other side. Those two silver bolts I took off, they're 15mm bolts. We wanna put those back on, and then we're gonna tighten those silver bolts down, and that's gonna clamp around this inner tie rod. We could then unscrew this without the use of any type of specialty tools getting this tie rod out. So by tightening up these two silver bolts, it's clamping down on this. After you have those tightened down, you're just gonna use a bare ratchet and put it inside that square cutout. We could then pry on this to loosen the tie rod. Back off these silver bolts and loosen up this tool, and then we should freely be able to spin the tie rod out. You can loosen this just here by hand once it's broke loose. And as soon as you get screwed all the way out, that's it. That's how we take that tie rod off. Here's also that washer I was talking to you about. So it's normally like a round washer. These two ends get folded over to go on either side of the tie rod here where these flat spots are at. So it pinches onto that and doesn't really allow it to spin or move around. Now, once you have that factory tie rod out, what you wanna do is lay these side by side, not in the orientation I have them. You wanna line these up, and you're gonna tune the apex tie rod to be as similar length as you can get it. You're gonna line them up here at the bases of the inner tie rod. And then we can see here that the apex is a little bit longer than the OEM. We need to unbolt the jam nut here, and then screw the outer tie rod to adjust the length and make it as close to this length as possible. What that's gonna do is keep your alignment as close as you can possibly get it. So at least when you drive to the alignment shop, your alignment's not completely out of whack and you're not gonna have any issues with the vehicle. So Apex supplies you with a new clamp here for that back boot and the washer, the one that we had to bend. So there are gonna be some teeth on this thing folding up one direction. You want those teeth to align with the groove here in your steering rack. So make sure to put that on the correct orientation. That'll help keep these two locked together. And then we're gonna take this silver, it's not exactly a hose clamp, but I guess you can call it a hose clamp. It's just a different style clamp than your traditional hose clamp, but you wanna put that on the edge of your boot. And then we're gonna go ahead and get this screwed in to the steering rack again. Once we got that screwed in as much as we can do by hand, we're gonna go ahead and use that tie rod tool again. Tighten that down, and then what we want to do is get a torque wrench so we can torque that down to the correct specs of 60 foot-pounds. It's gonna be kind of fun to get back up in here, but we need to also take that round washer and try and fold over the ends like the factory one was. And that back style clamp just needs to be pinched for it to be locked in place. It's definitely gonna be a little tricky getting that one pinched. You just gotta get back into this small compartment, but just make sure you do not forget to put that on or that boot will come off. You wanna unscrew the castle nut here from the Apex chassis. You're gonna take this blue cap off. It's just like a protector for shipping. And then we need to, I'm gonna have to move this around a little bit, get it lined back up with the knuckle on the truck and get that inserted. And then with the teeth on the castle nut facing up, we're gonna screw that back on here. The castle nut on top here needs to be torqued down to 67 foot-pounds with a 22 millimeter. Now, one thing to note, after I have this tightened and torqued, the hole going through the tie rod that we're gonna put our little cotter pin through is not lined up with the castle nut, so we just need to tighten that a little bit more so we can get that hole exposed to get the cotter pin put through. All right, for those of you not familiar with the cotter pin, it's kind of like the man's bobby pin. It just has 2 split ends on it. Feed it through the hole in the tie rod here. And then on the other end where those 2 ends are at, you wanna take them and split them out to prevent this from coming out. And this also helps the castle nut not back itself off. So thanks to Blue Line Whips, I just turned on my rock lights here, and it's giving us a good amount of lighting because we're starting to lose sunlight here. The last thing we need to do is get this last hose clamp fitted on the end of the rubber boot here to keep that from going anywhere. So there's a little groove right here on the tie rod where this goes into, and that's gonna hold it in place. Another nice thing about these Apex tie rods is that they're greasable with the Zerk fitting, but the Zerk fitting is not installed, I'm assuming just for purposes of not getting it damaged in shipping. So on the bottom of the tie rod here, you just wanna make sure you get that Zerk fitting screwed in. And then on your next oil change, when you do maintenance, it's always a good idea to inspect these, make sure everything's good, check the tightness. Yeah, another thing too, I guess I didn't tighten up that jam nut, but you wanna check the tightness on the jam nut, make sure that's all secured, and then potentially do some greasing if it's needed. I'm gonna call that a successful job. The sky's still light, the sun's down, it's definitely below the horizon, but we still have enough light to get it done. Luckily, like I mentioned, those rock lights from Blue Line Whips came in and saved the day for a little nighttime install or a sunset install. It's not quite nighttime, but the lights are on. Porch lights came on, and we had to turn on the Blue Line Whips just to get the very last bit of that finished. I need to get the tire tossed on, but I'm gonna call it a job complete. Make sure, like I told you, you need to get your vehicle aligned after doing these, but as you can see here, I rate this on a very low difficulty level. It's not that hard to do. I was a little intimidated by it at first when I thought about doing these, but now that I've done the job, I will do these over many, many other projects I've done on the truck. They are not that hard. The biggest pain in the butt, I guess, is just having to go drive to an alignment shop and get your truck aligned afterwards. But the actual install process of this was not hard at all. So that is gonna wrap it up for today's video. I appreciate you guys for sticking around, but before you move on to the next video, please do me just a couple favors. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a thumbs up down below. It helps the video be more successful to get seen by people just like yourself. If you have any questions about the Apex tie rods, anything in this video, or just anything for myself or the build in general, drop a comment down below. I try my best to reply to every comment that is left on my videos. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. I appreciate you, and I will see you on my next video.